Hello and welcome to the Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on May the 20th. Can we have a call to order, please?
Yes, Bill Marin,
Yo.
Kyle Oberketter, Eric Vozek,
Here.
Rob Levitt,
Yes.
Cindy Hirschfield,
Here.
Katie Hostetler,
Here.
Mike Horvath, Bob Kaplan,
Here.
Ben Firestein.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Excellent. Next order then is to approve the minutes from April the 15th, 2025. Does anybody have any comments or do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then the next order then is a Eagle County referral in regards to the Willits Bend PUD amendment, and I will hand that over to staff.
One moment.
Sure.
You want this one?
No, that's good. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be back here. Came to you guys 2 weeks ago with an Eagle County referral, back again. Hope you guys all read your 856 pages of homework for the full application, but in lieu of that, we'll start with a little background on the application for a PUD amendment at the Willits Bend PUD located within the Basalt 3-mile planning area, also within the Basalt urban growth boundary. The town of Basalt has been given the opportunity to provide referral comments on this development application. It's application number PDA 009437 of 2024. The Willits Bend PUD is a little over 4 acres, 4.36 acres, and is currently zoned as PUD in Eagle County. Prior to the original PUD approval in 2006, the property was zoned commercial general. The current PUD was intended to be a mixed-use commercial and light industrial development, allowing for on-site live-work opportunities as well. 9 condominiumized buildings were originally conceived with a maximum floor area of 92,555 square feet and a maximum lot coverage of 43,651 square feet. Of the 9 buildings originally proposed for the PUD, only 3 have been constructed. The existing floor area is approximately 50,000 square feet, with a total ground coverage or lot coverage of just over 17,000 square feet. For a little more background, there are several industrial buildings that were pre-existing, not a part of this PUD application, which also exist on the site. 81 additional for-rent units are proposed to be provided in addition to the existing 32 condominiumized units. Of the 81 additional units, 11 are proposed to be deed-restricted units. 2 units were previously approved but unbuilt. These are proposed to be constructed under this application or alongside this application and future construction. Proposed building heights range from 30 to 31 feet, keeping with the dimensional limitations on the site. Total floor area is proposed to be approximately 115,000 square feet, an increase of over 22,000 square feet from the previous maximum floor area that was proposed and permitted. The maximum lot coverage is proposed to increase to 45,522 square feet, approximately 2,000 square feet more than the previous maximum lot coverage, which was permitted. There is a link here for the full application, but as previously mentioned, it was quite large. So staff in the packet that was uploaded for this meeting has also included a draft referral letter for the consideration of Planning and Zoning staff tonight. Planning and Zoning Commission rather. Planning and Zoning Commission can either approve or approve with amendments that letter. That letter is required to go out on referral tomorrow, should the town like to respond to the Eagle County opportunity for comment. The applicant's application narrative was also included, as well as 3 graphic exhibits, a civil site plan with the amended lot changes, a civil site plan with proposed improvements on the site, and a landscape schematic plan as well. Moving into the draft referral letter, staff is going to just start by reciting a few of the most pertinent comments, and then we'll open it up to commissioners for further discussion. Staff wanted to bring to the commission's attention comment number 2. So approximately 2 years have elapsed and significant site plan changes have occurred since the last HOA approval for this development. The town of Basalt and staff would suggest that Eagle County consider whether an additional written approval from the HOA is warranted for the development. Moving to number 5. Regarding affordable housing mitigation, the town and Eagle County have an IGA from 2008, which establishes that new development in the 3-mile planning area is required to comply with the more stringent the town of Basalt or Eagle County's affordable housing mitigation requirements. The actual language states that it shall consider. The proposed development application only proposes 13% of the proposed units to be deed-restricted affordable housing units, considerably less than what would be required under the town's affordable housing mitigation. Just for commission's reference, the number of units would be required to be 20% of the total number of residential units, and the square footage would be required to be 25% of the net residential square footage. The existing proposal is about half of the square footage, and a little over half of the number of total proposed units. Should the applicant follow the town's affordable housing mitigation standards, they would be required to provide 17 units as a part of the proposed new construction. Moving to comment number 6, however, 8 resident occupied units are proposed to bring the property into compliance with the previous conditions of approval. These 8 units were not constructed with the previous permitting, although they were required. The applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing to construct those resident occupied units. The town would not only encourage that those be built, but be brought into compliance with the deed restriction as would be otherwise applied to the project. Moving to number 7, the town of Basalt encourages Eagle County to require that the deed restrictions give priority to those employed within the Basalt 3-mile planning area. Number 9 as well, the development proposal shows potential for vehicular access to connect to the town property in the to the north. This has been discussed offline as well with the applicant, kind of prior to the town's ability to provide referral comment on this application. So we've worked not only with the applicant, but have also looped in CDOT, considering there's a previous access control plan that crossed the town site to the north. For a little more context here, that town site is slated to house not only Public Works, which is currently there, but the future police department. So there's a significant interest for the town to kind of control what that access looks like. The suggested updated access for this site would move the public vehicular access to Lake Avenue, adjacent to the new Lake Modern development, and just keep EVA, or emergency vehicle access, across the town site. And then one last comment to bring the commission's attention to. Most of the rest are boilerplate, but happy to answer any questions you may have on those as well. The applicant does not address mitigation of offsite or overflow parking concerns at this property. The previous approval for this property, Eagle County accepted a reduction of parking from, I believe it was 232 parking spaces to 222. and that was approved in the Willits Bend PUD. The applicant currently is requesting far fewer parking spaces, and the town does not support that reduction in parking. And then one final comment for you guys. We've placed some draft language for potential additional comment after sitting on it over the weekend and having some further staff discussion. But staff has considered an additional comment related to affordable housing that states, should Eagle County not require the applicant to adhere to the housing mitigation standards for the town of Basalt, the town would strongly encourage Eagle County not to apply a reduction of the county mitigation standards for provision of deed-restricted rental housing. Kind of as we understand, this provision addresses a lack of rental housing in the Eagle River Valley. But as many of you know, that scenario is not the same over here in the Roaring Fork Valley, and we would encourage them to retain their housing mitigation standards for this application. With that, I'll open it up to commissioner question, comment.
Commissioner or applicant comments, or how do?
Yeah, it'd be appropriate if, Patrick, if you've got comments from the commission.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Patrick Raleigh, Raleigh Design Planning. I am the planning consultant and landscape architect for the applicant. Just a couple of clarifications and going through, and thanks Carlton for going through your comments. Concerning, so this has been a long time coming. We have a lot of back and forth with the county, and we're just getting finally to the point where we're getting to the review stage. So just a couple of points of clarification I guess I'd like to make is there are no really significant, concerning specifically your comment number 2 about significant changes to the site plan. There have been no significant changes to the site plan. There has been a lot of work on this, a lot of refinement that we've done with particularly Eagle County engineering, but the plan has always stayed the same from the day one since we submitted this land use application several years ago. So there really are no significant changes, and I'd like to point that out. Concerning the update of the HOA consents, it was very difficult to get those consents because of the situation of the HOA. Because there are no significant changes, I don't think you're going to gain anything, and moreover, it's going to likely be impossible to get that in any timely fashion. So we would request that request be stricken. Couple of points of clarification on the existing square footage that is out there. The 50,000 square feet includes those industrial buildings. Those industrial buildings will be removed and replaced with new buildings. I think it's important to note that this is really a completion of a previously approved project. We still have 9 building envelopes. 3 of the buildings were constructed. We're going to finish this out. The main change of this PUD amendment is the permitted uses that are going to be allowed within the PUD. So that leads into the discussion of 115,000 square feet. Is this a 22,000 square foot expansion? It is not. It's really largely how we are measuring the space. I just spoke to our planner, Janet Eloise, earlier today, and she confirmed my recollection that when I put in 115,000 of proposed square footage, that includes basement space. And that is somewhat, there's some confusion as to how the PUD defines the floor area and how the county wanted us to do it. So if you add in the basements, we have 115,000 square feet. If you exclude the basements, we're right at about 98,000 square feet, and the current PUD guide says 93,000 square feet. So a little bit of question of how you apply that, but really important to say that there is no big expansion of what we're proposing. We have those envelopes, we have the vertical envelope, we're filling those in just with previously approved buildings and just changing the use. Concerning the affordable housing, I appreciate your comments. We have worked really carefully with Tori Franks, who is the sustainability person over at the county, and she has reaffirmed several times that the 12.5% and what we're providing is appropriate and, you know, acceptable to the county. The RO units, the 8 that were not built, again, kind of in the same vein as we're picking up and finishing this project. Those I would like to be considered as our affordable housing package because they were never constructed previously. So we're going to ensure that those will occur. Had a couple of questions about the real estate transfer assessment. That was also part of the affordable housing. Carlton didn't go over it, but it is point 8 in your letter that at the time in 2006, it was acceptable for a real estate transfer tax or assessment to be imposed on the sale of the free market units that are out there. So buildings 4 and 5 are condominiumized free market for sale units. At the time, that was part of the affordable housing mitigation package. That is no longer accepted by the county, so that the real estate transfer assessment would still just be limited only to the free market units. And I think it's inappropriate to apply it to the sale of the future buildings because, again, the original intent was for the sale of those individual units. We have gone to try to reconstitute the Willits Bend Affordable Housing Corporation. I'm on the board with the applicant, and the county has also assigned several members from county government to be on that board. We look forward to trying to leverage those funds in a meaningful way, but as they have sat so far unused. So we would like to try to reconstitute the use of those funds, and then also look for ways to try to enhance that. Concerning the pedestrian connection, I think this is point number 10. Carlton didn't go over. We are in support of granting an easement through the property for public access. That is fine. And then in a related vein, also looking at the access, the emergency access, one of the comments was, can we take a look at it and see if it's viable? And we can, and we've worked with our civil engineer over the weekend, and we can provide that emergency access if the county so chooses. So that's just one piece. We're more than happy to try to work with everybody to get access through the site and emergency. I think that is most of the topics that I wanted to cover. I'm happy to respond to any questions that you guys might have. And yeah, if you have any additional questions.
We'll open it up for commissioner questions of both staff or applicant. Bill?
I have a fairly salient question I know this wouldn't be fair to you, Patrick, but you at least attempt to try. What rationale does Eagle County have for not following the 08 IGA?
You know what? I have no response to that, Bill. We had many, many meetings with various people at the county, and that actually, frankly, was never brought up. So it was news to me. So I have no reason to believe, or no response to that, why they wouldn't be following that.
That's my only question.
I have a few. So just to clarify, the brightly colored buildings that now exist, those are actually three buildings?
Those are 3 of the 9 that were
separate,
yeah,
okay.
4 and 5, I think it's yellow and blue are the free market, which will remain free market and condominiumized.
And the other ones are?
The other one is has a toy seller, which is the
yeah.
vehicle concierge service, and then that has for rent units up above that are existing. I think 8 units up there.
Okay. So there were 2 units that were not built that were approved, and then the 8 RO units are in addition, so there were 10 actually that weren't built
With 2,
that
yeah,
were approved?
that is correct. The 2 units would be for rent, and they were over building 2. So building 2, which is towards the front, Let's see if I can point this
Is it
out.
this one right here? Yeah.
Yeah, that's building 2, I'm sorry, building 3, excuse me, it's building 3. That would have 2 units on the second floor, and then the ground floor would be utilized as some kind of community space. That's kind of yet undetermined, but a community space for the greater Willits Bend community, possibly a WeWork situation or other HOA functions.
Was there a particular reason why these approved units weren't built originally?
No, I don't know that, simply that the rest of the project was never finalized. I don't think they realized that the model worked with financial realities as the conditions changed. So it just was never followed through.
And then I think there was something in the application that said the live and work units in the first 3 buildings didn't pan out as envisioned or planned.
Right.
I was interested in getting a little more information about that, and how does that reflect on, what do you see as the reasons for that? How does that reflect on building all this more additional housing? Like, if people decided it's just not a desirable place to live at all, would it make more sense to build more housing? Or
Well, I think
curious to know a little bit more
I
about
think
that.
the addition of more housing is always going to be seen as a positive, and I think that's what we would like to bring forth, is additional housing for workforce, local workers. I cannot comment on the economic realities of those live-work, other than that they simply just were not selling as they had originally been envisioned to sell. So I don't have any additional information.
Are there a bunch of them that are just empty now, or?
No, most of them are filled with various, businesses. Some are utilized as residential, or I think, mostly as residential units. But I don't have more information on that.
And then my last question, I don't know if this relates to the question Bill just asked, but you mentioned the woman at Eagle County being,
Torrey,
being fine with the amount of affordable housing, but it's not equivalent to what their requirements are from what we
Well,
just saw. So why is she okay with that?
A 12.5, well, the reduction, normally it's 25%, but a reduction to 12.5% is an acceptable thing that they do for rental units. As Carlton pointed out, they have a preference for rental units, so that is a standard reduction that is granted by the county.
Because it's rental?
Because
Okay.
it's solely because it's rental,
Got it.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So it was nothing unique.
Ben, keep going down the line. Questions?
Was there I'm sure there was, seeing it was 800 pages, I'm trying to flip through this now, the traffic impact analysis that was provided.
Correct.
Looking at your civil site plan, it looks like you are proposing an additional access way onto Willits Road?
There is well, that is the main, there we go. So if this is the main access.
Correct, that's
of course,
existing.
That's existing,
Yes.
exactly. This is an emergency access that was platted and required.
Yes.
But in practice, it has grown over and they park cars in it. So we look to enhance that with, make it look nice so it'll be grass created, but we've worked with the fire department to ensure that, fire trucks can utilize that, place bollards and other mechanisms in there to ensure that that emergency access is always open. So that is not meant to be a public access, but it's only a secondary means of ingress and egress by emergency
And is that the
vehicles.
same condition that you intend to do on the north side of the site?
The north side of the site, again, we just have explored this. I do have a preliminary drawing that our civil engineer has shown, and really what it would amount to, it would require probably the loss of this parking area. We would raise this building, the finished floor, by 4 inches and this building by 6 inches, and then allow a very steep, or steeper 10% segment that would, there's a retaining wall, there's a significant, a 5 or 6 foot grade rate at this point. So the widget lane would kick up to a 10% to get in between the proposed police station. And the parameters that were given to us is that all of the grading had to be kept on our side of the property line, and we can accommodate that if the county chooses to request that.
Was there a discussion about the location of the dedicated easement, pedestrian easement?
We've had quite a bit of discussion about that going back to the very earliest days. So the cross easement that the applicant is willing to grant would allow for, and again, one of the comments was the civil plan doesn't really reflect all of the sidewalks. There's been a lot of changes and stuff that will rectify this, but there would be a pedestrian path that would cross through here. Behind Building 9 would be a recreational area, kind of a barbecue area and a children's play area, and then the connection would then meet the northern property line by a ramp. It would be ADA accessible, and then go around the public works yard into an existing sidewalk.
And all of these improvements would not reduce the parking count?
They are in support, the connectivity is in support of the reduction of the parking.
But from what you show here on this site plan and what you just described, as far as that connectivity, that would reduce the parking versus the number that's shown.
No, there would be no parking spots removed, if that's the question.
Yeah, that was the
I
question.
think I can add a little clarification here. So, yeah, one of our comments speaks to a lack of continuity, maybe, or consistency across the civil site plan and the landscape plan. But the landscape plan shown provides pedestrian connectivity that comes through the site, and it would be an attached sidewalk that comes through the site and would not remove the parking.
That's a helpful picture.
Yeah, that's a much better drawing. So to walk you through the site, this is would be a we-cycle station. Okay, one of the comments is to have a previous approval condition was to provide an enhanced crossing thank you, crossing at Willets Lane. Some additional comments that we've received is to have a beacon or something, and we'll comply with that. And then someone would wind their way through the various areas to the northern side. And no parking is being lost, and then in fact, that that goes to support the parking reduction because of the connectivity to the original road bus stop that's there.
And the access point, just to clarify, that the town wanted on the pedestrian access is actually in this location, because we have, when we built out the Public Works facility, left kind of an edge around the west side of the Public Works facility for that pedestrian access. And then it picks up with the sidewalk that goes back to the east to the bus stop. But that's the appropriate location on the town's property for that pedestrian access.
And
Town is in support of that, so.
question for staff, what is the total parking count on the application?
Pull that up right now. I want to say off the top of my head, it's 176. but
And required
maybe
was
Patrick can-
222, you said?
232 is required under code. A reduction was allowed in previous approval of 222. And we are currently proposing 174 spaces, or excuse me, 183 spaces. And that has been double verified. And that is a 5% cushion over the peak demand that has been modeled by our parking consultant of 174. So the reduction of parking was from 232 to 222 was previously granted. We're requesting a PUD variation. And in support of that PUD variation is the provision of TDM measures such as connectivity to transit, we-cycle, other community-based single occupancy vehicle reduction, carpooling, and we would explore other measures such as a car share, or as your referral comment, a contribution to the Basalt Connect. I think something like that we would be amenable to. All into support to, reduce that number of parking that's there. But we feel that under peak demand, based on our modeling, that we actually do have a cushion with the 183 that we're providing.
How many total housing units once completed?
There will be, there's 81 proposed and I believe 24 existing.
So 105.
So, actually, I'm sorry, there's 32. There's 81 proposed, 32 that exist in the free market, and then plus the 2 additional that were never constructed. Can somebody do the math for me?
113.
Yeah.
113.
113, that's correct.
It's tight. Yeah, it just seems, I'm very concerned about the parking. That's 1.7 per unit. Yeah, it seems very light.
The current applicant has actually done quite a lot to try to standardize the parking situation. The previous owner had some unwritten agreements, and everybody was in confusion as to what parking spaces were existing and belonging to them. So to try to clear that up as part of the overall management of the site of the HOA was excluded from the rest of the site as it was necessary, but in connection with that, there was a parking and access easement agreement that has been entered into, signed by all the parties, that it's recorded, that identifies parking for the existing units that then works with the proposed addition. We feel that confident that parking can be provided. If you notice in this area, I'll go back. That is a proposed arboretum as a nod to the Emma, the history of Emma. But that has been earmarked for parking and reserve is what it's called. So in the event that additional parking is required, we can claw back that space for additional parking. But again, our parking consultant feels very strongly that we can meet the peak demand.
Other questions? And we'll save comments, we can get the comments.
I'll jump in. I have not seen anywhere how many units was on the original proposal, but it was still mixed use. How many housing units?
I don't have that information. I can attempt to find it, but I don't know exactly. It would be in the PUD guide that I just don't have with me right now.
We know?
We don't have the PUD, I don't have the PUD guide open right now, but just from reasoning, there's 32 units currently constructed. 8 were approved for resident occupancy that were not constructed, and then 2 additional units that were not constructed from the previous approval, so I'd say 42 units.
Well, but you're saying of the additional units in the other buildings.
Yeah, there's still 6 buildings.
We would have to go, I'd have to take a
Okay.
look at the recorded 2016 PUD
I'd like to see what
agreement.
the change is, how many additional units we're proposing now versus what was originally proposed there.
Understood.
It's pretty,
Rob, I'll look it up. while
Okay.
we're further talking here.
It's in the application, or?
and tell me if this is too soon, but are there going to be any ADA units?
Yes, there are ground floor units. There we have ADA parking, and so those units would be provided adjacent to those ADA parking spaces, and they would be on the ground floor. In addition, as I've mentioned, the connection path would be ADA
Is
compliant.
there a difference between the Basalt Code and the Eagle County requirement for ADA housing?
There shouldn't be. It should be the same invitation.
It's all IBC.
Yeah.
It's all.
It's all in the IBC. It's all
Okay.
the same.
Sometimes we could be stricter.
We could have been, yeah.
I'm also confused on the 8 units that were not built that you're planning to build. Are those part of the 16 total that we're building? or in addition to?
It's 81 new proposed plus the 8 units.
Plus the,
Yes, plus the 8 RO resident
okay, and of the
occupied
81, 16 you're proposing to be affordable.
Well, the 81 units, the affordable would be sprinkled with throughout those 81. Then you have the additional 8 RO plus the 2 that weren't built in building number 3. That's how we got to the total of 113.
Maybe I'm not being clear. The 81 units would require 13 affordable.
Under Eagle County requirements with the 12.5%.
So that 13 does not include the 8 that were not built?
No, the 8
They
are in addition
to, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd
The
be
8 are in the
21.
addition
Right,
because it was a
okay.
previous condition of approval, but they have not been constructed.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was trying to get at, thank you.
There was a comment too, the RO units, Eagle County, the letter states that there would be a preference for people living within the Basalt 3-mile area. The RO units are allowed for anybody in Pitkin, Eagle, and Garfield counties, so it broadens out the base of people who could utilize those units.
Thanks, that's it for my questions. Cool.
Katie, any questions?
Can staff remind me what the comment was around HOA or the amendment to the letter or in the letter?
Yeah, the request was for an updated HOA approval. The applicant has asked tonight that you guys reconsider that comment. And I guess there's a little disagreement, as you've heard, over the site plan changes, but there's a previous application that came before the town of Basalt in 2020. That was not the approval, the most recent approval that we have on hand. The most recent approval dates to 2023. And staff feels that those changes are significant enough to to notice the HOA.
So wait, are you saying that the approvals that we have in the application were part of the previous archdiocese?
No,
Okay.
no, and that was the clarification, was that,
Okay.
the 2020 application, not to be confused. So that was the last time that the town of Basalt made comment, but
I see.
the HOA approval that we have is from 2023.
And no changes have been made to the land use application since that time, so.
Did the vesting,
That's the change,
did the vesting rights expire on this?
well, they filed their plats, no. You could conceivably go in for a building permit for the original approval if you so choose. You would have to get into whether or not all of the conditions of approval were finalized, but we've had PUD plat amendments, plats and amendments made to those. There has been some additional land use in Eagle County, so I believe that vesting was secured from the previous.
And Ben, that's out of our purview.
Just asking.
No, it's a good question, but it's out of
Well,
our purview.
now, okay, now I'm a little confused. If nothing changed since 2023, then what exactly why do we need to reapprove or approve?
Well, so a bit of history. So the Archdiocese of Denver had a fully affordable housing, and I believe that's what Carlton is referring
Yeah, I
to.
vaguely remember that.
That application was pulled. Around 2022, 2023, my client prepared this land use application and went and got HOA approvals based on the land use application that you have in front of you. So my request to change to comment number 2 is that there has not been a significant site plan change from the time that we got the HOA approvals that you see in the application today.
So it was only the HOA that approved it in 2023, not the county? Is that right?
No.
What am I not getting?
It didn't come forward to the
Okay.
county in
In 2020?
2023.
Well,
Who approved it in 2023?
there has
Just
been
the
no,
HOA.
I have been in the development of this land use application since 2023.
Okay.
Okay.
And that HOA approval was provided to you as a condition of the land use application that started 2 years ago?
No.
Okay.
The HOA approvals were a requirement or they're a requirement of any land use
Yes.
application. So it's a new land use application in 2023. We had to go get HOA approvals. There has not been any change to the site plan that you see in front of you right now. The HOA approvals are based on that site plan. So there has been no significant changes as the letter states.
Had we removed the industrial component in 2023? Was it all residential then?
I'm sorry, say that
Was it
again?
entirely residential in 2023? You'd already removed the industrial component?
And the previous Archdiocese application, which I would say 2020 or 2021, something like that, was 100% affordable housing. And that was pulled due to HOA issues with that. So they couldn't get their HOA consents. So we came in with this current plan for the rental units with an affordable housing component.
So there was no mixed use in 2023?
There is no mixed use in this current application, which is what we'll call the 2023 application,
Okay.
other than what is already out there.
Okay.
Yes, the existing, they do talk about the existing industrial and office uses.
That remains.
PUD is industrial.
Yes, the PUD has the mixed use.
The application does
The
not.
application does not. The application is
Right.
residential. Yes.
James, any luck?
I'm still working on it here.
So we do have the previous PUD in this application from 2016. However, those numbers are, reflect the current built condition, not the original intent of 9 buildings. So they call for 34 units, which was the approved and permitted number, which would be the 24 existing plus the 8 and 2. So obviously not the original kind of envision.
But the original plan is what you see before you. In 2016, they had 9 building envelopes. We have 9 building envelopes. We're finishing that 2016 approval with a different set of uses.
That's accurate, nine buildings.
What's the height of,
31 to 32, I believe, is what the PUD has specified, and we are going to stay within those dimensional. So they're largely going to be very similar to what you see today. Some of the roof form that you see out there, which is a little bit, was difficult to complete. They've had some maintenance issues, I believe, and stuff like that. So it'll just be a flat roof rather than the peaked roofs that you have on 2 of the buildings.
and the setback for the PUD?
Unchanged.
Unchanged. Okay.
Those envelopes that you see, those 9 envelopes have been approved, and we are utilizing those exact same envelopes. So it's really the main change here is a change of use. We're even sticking with the color program that everybody seems to like.
Blue and yellow.
Well, everybody knows them as the colorful building, so we're going to continue that.
Is the Basalt open space requirement the same as Eagle County, 25%?
Generally, depending on your zoning, but yeah, it's between 25 and 35%, depending on your zoning.
Okay.
In
zoning-
industrial zoning, similar to this, it would be actually less than Eagle County's.
But if it were residential,
It would depend on the zoning, but you're in the realm of 30%.
okay.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
One more quick question. You mentioned the amount of square footage in basement space. What's the envisioned use for that?
The existing buildings 4 and 5 have, or building 4 and 5, they are storage. They're storage units that are for sale or for rent. They can be, and I believe building 6 may have some storage in the basement as well, and those would be made available to the tenants.
Okay.
Yeah.
If no additional questions, let's kind of segue over more to comments and how we want to go.
You doing public comment?
We don't, it's a referral letter, so it's not public
So no public
comment.
comment, okay.
No. So let's go this way this time. So Rob, any comments on top of the questions?
The jobs that we were originally going to build, you know, where are these people going to work? Because they're not going to be working on site, so there was just more people commuting up. I think it's the opposite direction that we want to go in. You know, this is less parking and more units, affordable housing. So we're willing to go that far, right? There's a few other places I would like to also strongly encourage Eagle County, as opposed to just pointing out that this project is 25% bigger than it was originally proposed. It was in the original PUD. So, yeah, I'm not in favor of bigger projects, and if that's something that's going to be entertained, then I think we should maybe, if we all feel similar, we could be more strongly opposed or not.
Let's go around a little bit, and then we'll
Okay.
come back to that as a point of reference. Katie, any comments?
No comments.
I'll mirror some of what Rob said. I do have concerns about the parking issues, the density that it's bringing. I'm definitely for the affordable housing aspect and the moderate cost housing aspect that it brings, which we're in dire need of. And yes, it would be nice to see if we can push it, if we can push for more designated affordable housing. Absolutely.
Ben?
I see this a few different ways. I think that encouraging density and providing places to live is critical to the maintenance of our area. At the same time, on the maintenance side, from a traffic generation standpoint, we are having more people entering into an area on Willits that is already extraordinarily complex and will only get more complex as we change user classes and bring more recreation there to the new Durox Park river project. As I see that project, I see adjustments to that intersection needing to be maintained and further complicating what is more users entering and leaving. That's the side of the street that's across. From a parking perspective, I tend to believe that Eagle County has really strict parking requirements from, 2 parking requirements per studio, and that's what we're talking about here. While I do think that is legitimate, it is something that has been reduced in the past, and I've asked for that variance as well. So the majority of this parking, if we look at the 222 that's on here in the table, is 154 spots based on 77 studio units. So 77 times 2 is the 154 that is required per the PUD, and that's where they're asking for that variance.
Gotcha.
It still doesn't answer the question of trip generation and users on our streets, and the not following the affordable housing code, the previous project not producing any affordable housing, and not putting a green space area. Our easement through that lot feels very disjointed and complex, and therefore users aren't going to use it. It's also very frustrating to read the language that town put together in the previous application and just continuing to see the words, and we're repeating our comments from the previous application, and we're repeating our comments from the previous application, and we're repeating our comments from the previous application. And that, despite the work that the applicant is doing on this, it puts a sour taste in my mouth.
Agreed.
Cindy, any comments?
I would like to see that affordable housing component of it upped. I mean, at least to meet the minimum requirements, if not more. And then will we see, are we going to put your letter up again so we can look at it now that we've discussed?
We can ask staff to put up to
Okay.
take a look at it.
Yeah, just now that we've talked about everything, I'd like to read it again. Okay.
Cindy, we're going to end up with the same situation where those units are advertised in Denver and become pied-à-terres for weekend people, right? There's nothing preventing that. We have this conversation every time.
Right. I mean,
Therefore-
I guess given the location, it's such an industrial location that I don't know how much it would appeal to out-of-towners
Walk to the
again?
river and go fishing.
Walk to Willits.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a good point. I mean, I hadn't, it doesn't concern me as much as some other locations, I guess, or it wasn't before you brought up those points, but, yeah, I mean, it's always a concern in the background.
I don't want to be Charlie Brown here again.
These are all renting. These are all rental units, too.
That's
is-
just the affordables.
I thought they're all rentals.
The entire building?
81 units will be rental. The existing 24 are going to remain as free market.
Not deed restricted rental. Free
And-
market.
And then the 12.5% will be deed restricted, plus the 8 RO resident occupied deed restricted. But you're correct, they are going to be all rental units.
Yeah, I think for me, that does make a difference.
Okay, but not deed restricted, so if someone from Denver could rent it just as easy.
Yes, they could, but I don't, you're not going to be getting the same return on investment as
Yeah.
flipping properties across the street.
The intent is clearly to make them available to local workers. But anybody can rent them, it's a free one.
Bill, comments?
Yes, I have comments. My comments are slightly different than other people's here, and they're generated by quite a bit of history with the town of Basalt in Eagle County that I've seen over the years, 30 of them to be exact. And, as evidenced by the staff memo and all of the items that were repeated from our last ask that were not granted or considered, Eagle County does not generally listen to much that we say. And also is evidenced by the tree farm project, where we ask and they don't really comply. I think in this one, the only real salient issues here for this board are the ones that have to do with the intergovernmental agreement of 08. Because we actually have an agreement for which they have come up with some legal weasel thoughts that I'm not sure have that much validity. And I think the town of Basalt, at least here, should consider making a stand about at least just the IGA issues. And primarily, there's two of them on item 5 and 17. 5 is the affordable housing. I think we should have the strongest language possible about that and sticking to our guns, and that's what this is about. The extra language, which I think should be in our letter. I think that we should reorder the letter to put all of the IGA type points at the front, because they're the only ones that really, I think, matter. And it's my contention that a lot of people of a certain generation only listen to the first couple bullet points of any communication anyway. So as close as we can get to that type of communication would be useful. But I think the 5, 17, 17's not much, but I still think we should hold the line about it because it involves money and street access, if we own that street, and that is important. All the other things, I agree with what everyone said here, but that's really Eagle County versus the applicant, and that's not so much our purview. Eagle County has their contracts with their applicants and their residents outside of the town of Basalt. But the IGA is our contract as the town of Basalt with Eagle County, and they're not following it. And I think we should consider making it, calling out to the council that this is an issue and it will keep getting worse unless we make a point of it. I don't know what we can do, but I think at least here we should do that. So I think also, let's see, the added language, and the little thumbnails we've seen in the buildings. I know this is not our purview at all, but there is a couple thumbnails that were shown to us. And every affordable housing project and even some free market projects we've seen for residential use have had this declining scale of ugliness. And we're reaching this point of maximum ugliness. And it's, again, not our call. It's an economic decision that the owners make. But right next to this project is some of the most despicable storage of human beings I have ever seen in the ski company trailers. And this particular project, from an architectural standpoint, is not a lot better than that. A little bit, because it's made out of like timber and somewhat natural materials. Though I'm sure they're fire resistant. But it's just distressing. And again, we have no say over it, but my fidelity to my professions demands I at least say something about it. And again, it's just a personal opinion. And lastly, I'd like to say to Carlton, this was a great memo. I really appreciate it.
I think I would just add, in response to your comments, Bill, I appreciate your comments. The town met with Eagle County staff on Friday, just for everybody's background. And we had a productive discussion regarding the affordable housing mitigation. And Eagle County staff has also been in contact with their legal counsel regarding the affordable housing mitigation, particularly on this project. In response to the conversations that staff had with Eagle County staff, we've suggested the additional kind of backup that if they don't feel that they can adhere to or require our mitigation standards, that we encourage them to not apply the reduction of their own. So I guess that's what we have suggested as staff in front of you.
I personally believe this will go as far as we can go in that statement.
From a numbers perspective, how many units does that change versus the IGA to this non-reduction to what's being proposed now?
Well, 25% of 80 units is 20-something units.
25% is the IGA.
Standard Eagle County is 25%.
And the IGA says whichever is stricter, Eagle County or Town of Basalt.
So 21 units versus 13.
Yep.
21 plus 8.
And that does not include the additional 8 resident occupied.
Correct.
So
But the
just,
25% is the square footage, correct? And the 20% is the number of
Yeah,
units?
You're correct.
That's Basalt.
As someone who's had adult children living in their basement for years on end, I think garnering as much affordable housing as we can within walking distance of 2 bus stops is a good thing to strive for.
and I would just echo Bill's comments that I've been through 30 projects with Eagle County, but it does seem that whatever we suggest is taken with a grain of salt, and they do whatever they do. So I would echo that. We can argue about parking, we can argue about, access and all the other things. But what can we get them to actually listen to and adhere to? And I would agree, it's the intergovernmental agreement items. Because we're not gonna get review, we're not gonna have a chance to do any of this stuff. So, those are my comments. So,
In light of all this, I would like to make a motion to recommend, or no, to accept the memo as drafted with the additional language and the reordering that I had spoken of.
So as I gathered, it would be 5 and 17 would move to the front, and then no reordering beside,
Yeah, no
maybe 5, 6, 7, and 17 would move to the
Anything
front.
you feel as staff have bearing on the IGA.
Okay.
5 and 17 are the ones that I noted.
I heard previously potentially any that referred to affordable housing, or would you just restrict it to the IGA?
Just restricted to the IGA.
Okay.
Understood.
would you include this language, the
Yes,
additional language?
This additional language should be part of that.
Okay.
And would that be at the top as
That'd be
well?
number 1.
Okay.
Were you on the HOA?
I think let Eagle County deal with the HOA. I would like the HOA to be on board, but it's not our jurisdiction. And I want to limit our fights. And this is
Well, it's in the letter. Are you going to keep it in the letter?
What?
It's in the letter.
Yeah, it's in the letter. It's in the letter. I think it should be as written.
So keep it, but
Leave it where it is, because they may or may not, they'll ignore it. That's my feeling, but I'd like it all to be there.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
What was the motion for?
To accept the staff memo, moving, rearranging the IGA items to the front, including the additional language, and going from there.
I wanted to see it again.
Is there any thought to moving the repeated comments up to the front as well?
What's your motion?
They're not gonna do it, you know? If they do it, it's like, that's like a gift. But I have a certain amount of frustration with this.
I appreciate your historical knowledge on the frustration, because it read plainly.
Yeah.
We have a first, we have a second. Do you guys, I know Cindy, you're trying to pull it up. Rob, are you looking at it? Do you want to have the vote, or you want to wait a minute?
I like, wait a minute, there's just a few places where we were supportive of things, but I'm wondering if there's some things we want to be unsupportive of.
Sorry, you can
I
read
thought it
it
was
off
at
my
the
computer.
beginning.
Well, you'd have to convince
Right.
Bill with his motion.
I just want to see the letter.
Well, there's an expansion of the FAR by almost 25%. Doesn't bother you?
Well, I don't think it's gonna make a difference.
That's the recommendation.
I wanna pick my battles. I see the IGA as the battle to pick.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bill.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you.
What exactly,
Under normal
what exactly does that cover aside from the affordable housing?
The street access.
Maintenance agreements,
Street access funding.
maintenance agreements funding.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna use our road, they're, you know. you're gonna
right,
pay for
that's pretty basic. I mean, that's a easy ask.
Yeah, if we get that, I think we're miles ahead. I don't think, given what happened at Tree Farm, I don't think we have stand a chance with FAR. They don't care.
But housing, we want to try and be as encouraging as possible, right?
Yeah.
We are,
So
that's why we're
what's the
pushing
language
forward.
we're thinking of?
Carlton has the language, the additional language that's suggested by staff.
I can reread that, but it should be in front of you as well. The additional language
Rob's reading it.
reads, for the record, should Eagle County not require the applicant to adhere to the housing mitigation standards for the town of Basalt, the town would strongly encourage Eagle County not to apply a reduction of the county mitigation standards for provision of deed-restricted rental housing.
It doesn't mention the IGA.
But the other ones do.
Well, I mean, if that's what we're going to run on, then let's
Well, then make this one number
tie them
two.
together.
Yeah. Just put, keep it top.
Your motion, you can. put
Number
it where-
5 mentions the IGA directly.
Number 5 mentions the IGA directly, but,
Number 17 also mentions the
But, I
IGA
mean,
directly.
shouldn't this be,
well, here, let's see.
The
This is what we
sentence
should do.
ended?
In the, I think we should keep it as is, but in this statement that you've written, add, adhere to the housing mitigation standards.
As per the,
As per the Town of Basalt, Eagle County intergovernmental agreement.
Right.
Katie, do you okay that as your second?
Yes.
Okay. So we still have the motion with this adjustment. We ready for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Letter carries. Motion carries. You want to quibble over some language? We can do that. Always. I know you do. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah,
Appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you guys.
thank
your
you.
time?
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is affordable housing policy and code amendment updates.
Yeah, staff just wanted to provide an additional update. There are several items to provide updates on. The first being that the short-term rental fee that P&Z reviewed and Bach reviewed was approved by the council in a similar form to that as was recommended by the P&Z. Other updates included that council also approved a framework for a deed-restricted incentive program, and let me briefly share my screen. If it doesn't freeze here, sorry. And basically, this deed restrictive incentive program is similar to a buy-down program in which the town could pay funds to property owners to place deed restrictions on free market units. The framework was written by Design Workshop as part of their affordable housing implementation work. It has some parameters to the framework. It targets free market units with values of $1.5 million or less. And there would be 2 levels of deed restrictions that could be placed. A lower level of payment from the town for creation of an RO deed restriction without an appreciation cap, and then potentially a higher level of payment from the town for creation of a restriction with a appreciation cap to it. And you kind of see those 2 different funding concepts. The town does not currently have funding to put towards the program, but it could be budgeted in the future here, and we could get funds from multiple sources. So the town council approved just this framework for the program. And we'll take any questions you have on that. Some other updates. The town is constructing the Stotts Mill duplex that is near completion, and it should be completed in July. So those two additional units of deed restricted housing that will come online. Other updates include the Parcel 9 Cypress Meadows application, which is adjacent to the Willits Rugby Field. That received sketch plan approval for 16 units, similar to what the Planning and Zoning Commission saw. And so staff is working on a preliminary plan application with the design team. So that will be coming back to the P&Z shortly here. And then finally, staff has received proposals for consultants to do an overhaul of the zoning, the subdivision, and annexation sections of the town code. And so staff has interviewed the proposers that we received from putting out an RFP. And there's been a recommendation for Design Workshop on that contract. And so that will be going to the council here shortly. And then so the idea is to do an overhaul of most of the sections of the town code. Town staff has identified that we have some kind of piecemeal that's been done over time in terms of code amendments, and it's made the code hard to read and somewhat hard to use. So I think it's time for an overhaul of that piece.
There was also an RFP for design guidance for the historical districts.
Sure.
Is there a status update on that?
The status update is it did go to town council initially for a contract with GM Shea. And the council wanted more information about kind of the concepts that would be in those guidelines, envisioned for those guidelines. And so it'll be going back to the council with more information. Next week.
Additional questions, comments? Any other staff updates?
I'm going to give you a quick few. I know you're dying for this. The concert lineup's going to be announced tomorrow. They're coming. BPAC has a call to artists out for artwork to be commissioned to the town. And that deadline is May 30th. Information's on the town website. You may have noticed some construction going on at Triangle Park in Willits. We're putting in a new irrigation vault and a demonstration alpine garden. So that is going to be exciting. That should be done beginning of July. And
Demonstration Alpine Garden?
Demonstration alpine garden. So it's near the fountain.
When is it?
When?
What?
What is it? It's a rock garden with alpine landscaping involved that is drought tolerant and appropriate for the area, that people may kind of model future landscaping at their homes from, that is appropriate and not grass.
will be signed as such?
Yes, and the plants will all be labeled. And that's the demonstration aspect of it, is you can go and kind of learn about what's there.
Cool idea.
Yeah. Chris Beiser deserves all the credit for that. That was his idea and really well received by Post, so. And then last but not least, starting June 2nd, 2-hour parking enforcement will happen in this area. It's not paid parking, it's just 2-hour enforcement to have parking turnover. Signage is being installed this week, so you'll start seeing that, and there'll be some other outreach coming up, so, but no, it's coming. You know, the true intent here is just to make sure there's turnover and maybe employees don't park in front of businesses all day long. So I guess we'll see what happens. It's a trial effort for the summer, and we'll refine it after we learn the success or challenges.
Does that apply to Midland Spur?
No,
Okay.
Well,
a section of it,
Yeah.
The closed section.
like in front of CC's.
Okay.
And not Two Rivers here, for the park for the bus.
You'll see the signage.
Is that 2-hour parking?
There's an aspect of Two Rivers Park that is, Two Rivers Road that is. I can't remember how far it goes down, which is why I'm not telling you a spot.
And the hours of that is like 9 to 6 or something?
We're have a company that's going to be doing the enforcement. It's not the police department, and there's going to be a website. I think it's parkbasalt.com. So you can go find all of that information there once it's up.
And they actually have the map on there. You can see the map that shows the different.
If it's not paid, what kind of enforcement?
So the
Follow
company,
the letters?
yeah, so there's a difference between paying to park
Yes.
and getting a parking ticket.
Okay,
So if you're there for 3 hours, you might get a parking ticket.
gotcha.
Yeah. If that- We'll see what happens.
Two things at the school. If you didn't know, the graduation's this weekend, so if you want to avoid South Side or go to celebrate the kids. And then one great event, though, there's the art show there's a grand opening on Thursday at 5:30. The kids' work is unbelievable, so if you ever wanted to come up and check that out. And with that, does anybody have a motion to adjourn? No, go ahead. My bad. My bad.
I was wondering if, given the trouble that Patrick had going up to talk, and some of the troubles we have speaking, if the town could consider investing in some new broad-range microphones for us, so we don't get yelled at. And,
She didn't yell, she just came in,
no, I know, but it makes her job much easier, I think, if we could do that. These microphones have been here since just after we were using cassette tapes. So we've had these for a while.
That was only 2 years ago we had the cassette tapes going.
We've gotten fair use out of these.
Appreciate that comment. We have had the same as staff, so that's helpful.
Yeah. We support you 100%.
We support you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
At 7:18, second? Ben seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 7:18.
Thank you.
Is there still going to be an electronic